And we're live. Yes. Well, I'm sorry that we're a bit late. This was all my doing. I got caught up in streaming from Zoom to Facebook, but we sorted it. And you've got Mel today with the wonderful and amazing Kat Haber, who's here all the way from Vail, Colorado,
Yes.
on
You,
some mountaintop.
yes.
So, Kat, welcome to the show. We'll start out with a jingle, and then we'll continue with you.
Oh, and then please give me the link so I can share it.
Okay. If you go to while we're doing the jingle,
Okay.
just copy from my feed
Okay.
because that's how you can get the link to share. And in the meantime, the jingle. Are we ready for the jingle? Got to
Yeah.
be ready for that
I'm
jingle.
I'm not seeing it on your feed yet, though, on your
Yeah.
timeline.
Well, you should see it.
I'm not.
Okay. We'll check in a minute. In the
Okay.
meantime, the jingle.
Get a chair, grab a seat, or we'll sweep you off your feet. We move, we groove, you got Mel. Ease your legs, rest a while, all you gotta do is smile. We're swell, can't you tell you got Mel? When the show begins, you better hold on real tight, or before you know it, you'll be high as a kite. Take a break, settle down, we're the only show in town. SRO, don't you know you got Mel? Give it up, don't think twice, we're a hurricane on ice. What the hell, give a yell, ring your bell, show and tell. Mademoiselle, give a smell, you got Mel.
You've got Mel. And Mel has the incredible Kat Haber. So, Kat, we are actually live on Facebook.
Okay.
So, you want to tell the folks where we met, and
Yeah.
let's start out with Ted.
Let's see. Was the I have to ask you to remind me when was the very first time. I know that we've met online singing beautiful songs together during the pandemic year. We
Didn't we meet in Edinburgh at the TED Global?
Yes, I do. Yep, that was in the summer of 2019. That was quite an experience.
And
Um,
you are one of the first TEDxers in the world.
yeah, I started organizing in 2009 in Homer, Alaska, and then started immediately working with youth because the tech was beyond my skill set at that time. And so in 2010, the teenagers in our community produced their own and ended up receiving a Jefferson Award and an Ashoka Award because they were early on in the tech revolution and using the internet as a way of spreading ideas.
So, and you've been active in the TED organization ever since.
Yeah, I'm really curious about all the different initiatives that TED has done. They're currently partnering with Skoll Foundation. They have partnered with Melinda Gates doing TED Exchange, looking at global solutions. They have developed a TED Ed platform. They continue to iterate and innovate, and I'm right there riding the wave with them all along. Now I'm organizing from Vail, Colorado.
So, what are you organizing these days?
Well, this past summer we produced 29 online conversations called Pause Countdown. In the year of the pandemic, it was clear to me that there were so many simultaneous crises that were happening. What might be clues that we could ascertain and discern from the current crisis that we could apply to other layers of global crises? So it was pause, countdown, COVID clues, climate acts, local impacts. And we had about 1,000 business leaders, youth, elders, indigenous, women leaders, NGOs in conversation, diving into what's happening with the climate right now, what are our responses to COVID, how is it impacting us? Everything from food, energy, mental health, wellness, art, science, technology, ideas, stories, a whole plethora. Every Wednesday at noon and Sunday at supper, we would invite a cadre of fascinating people to have a conversation, which was really the genesis of TED, was an interesting dinner conversation that Richard Saul Wurman organized in the 80s. And then ultimately, Chris Anderson bought the platform from Richard and began with the publishing of these TED Talks and giving them away free to the world. And then in 2009, there was a very brief cryptic email saying, would you consider doing this in your community? And before I even finished reading that paragraph, I was responding, yes, count me in. I'm all in.
So
So we,
when did you hear about TED? Did you attend TED meetings way
yeah,
back when?
yeah. So in preparation for the 2009 World Wilderness Congress in Merida, Mexico, where we were assembling about 1,500 world conservation leaders, I brought 130 young professionals and teenagers to this conference. And we spent a week in Khan in the World Heritage Site, cleaning up beaches in a place where there were no inhabitants. And we knew then that plastics was really a serious problem. Um, so in preparation for that, of an associate on the team with me said, oh, have you ever gone to TED? They really do amazing conferences. And I said, no, I haven't. So jumped in, attended TED Active in Palm Springs, which was an adjunct to the TED conference, which was going on simultaneously, I think either in Monterey or Long Beach at that time. And that became the genesis of the tribe that is now the global community of TEDx organizers.
So I just want to shout out to June Cohen, who was instrumental in getting the TED lectures on the air and making them free. This was her initiative, and she convinced Chris, and the rest is history. TED is now a global word.
Yeah, and also Lara Stein, who had the vision to create this community of TEDx organizers.
Yeah,
And he has since gone on to lead Singularity and Global's initiatives and BOMA. And she
but
was
Kat, what's going to happen now with TED and TEDx? We organized, I think it might be my last TEDx organizing in last May
Mhm.
online.
Yeah.
It was so different, so difficult. What do you think is going to be with TED now?
That's a good question. I haven't really been in conversation with them recently because my personal life force is invested in climate action. I'm doing an activation June 3rd through the 5th called Living Brightly. What was clear to me this summer is that there is no more time to waste. We need to be prepared and we need to take action. And each one of us can be a piece of that solution. So I'll continue to be involved with TED and TEDx as long as they'll have me. Um, but it is an interesting time of transition. TED canceled their Insight event last year, as did we 2 weeks before we were to deliver it. So our youth event will be in place at the Ford Amphitheater this year, and we'll probably do a simultaneous live stream. So that makes it quite a bit more complicated. I have noticed that some of the elder TEDx organizers are either taking a wait and see approach or choosing to pivot and explore new things in this time.
Yes, indeed. Well, one of the dissonant observations that I made in Edinburgh is that TED is all about climate restoration, and yet
Mhm.
they have these meetings where 1,000 people fly in from all over the world and leave this humongous carbon imprint.
Thank you. Thank you. So the how is as important as the what, in my view. And so someone asked me recently about our own event, and I had to admit to them, we used to we used to fly in half of our speakers internationally because we wanted to both, like an hourglass, we wanted to bring outside ideas into our community, and then we wanted to expose the rest of the world to the ideas that were already embedded in our community. And I did not drive for 9 months. I haven't flown it over a year and a half, and it's clear to me that we are the change, and that means we are the change. So we have to change the way we do things if we're to be taken credibly.
Okay, but Kat, up until now, you've spent, you're a snow girl. I think you're a snow angel. That's what I think.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
Uh, as someone growing up in Canada, I remember making all these snow angels as kids, and you go with the snow.
I do.
I've just invented that. There's
Go with
people who go with the flow, and people who go with the snow, and you're of the second category. You certainly don't go with the flow; you go with the snow. And you spent like half years in Vail and half years in Alaska, and you didn't walk.
no. So, but it is impacting me. So, this year has been a year of very serious health crises in my family.
Oi.
Not flown up to Alaska, where my husband and son are right now. Um, the Canadian border is closed, and I pledged not to fly. So, for me personally, the pandemic has been a wake up call that if I'm going to be the change, I have to change. So, um,
One second, I'm going to shut the window here because we have some construction. Give me a second here. Sorry, one of the things about broadcasting from your home is you never know what's going to happen. Sorry, yeah. So your husband and son are in Alaska. I didn't know that.
um, so Canada has closed their border. Profound lessons are to slow down. Um, the how is as important as the what. And if we're going to be the change, we need to change. So um, I'll probably drive an older car up to Alaska and leave it there and replace it with an EV here in Colorado. So change it.
Difficult times. So tell the viewers a little bit about your life. Not everybody is cares so much about making the world a better place, and you're one of the people that I have learned is a true. You're a true change cadet. You
Aw,
inspire people, and you are the real McCoy. You're the real Haber. You're the real thing.
it's,
What?
it,
Tell us about your childhood.
let me just say first, it's interesting that you chose the word cadet because I was in fact a cadet at the United States Air Force Academy in the second class of women, and huge lessons there. Uh, Top of my class, number 11 out of 1,500, mostly men, 150 women out of 1,500 men in our class. And the years were 77 to 80. And many of the generals in all services declared that women would not survive the service academies. And indeed, by the time I left at the end of my junior year, we had 87% attrition among the women. So I feel like I did my part. I was a piece of the scaffolding upon which other women were able to stand and assert themselves serving. Michelle Johnson, my classmate, became a 3-star general and in fact became the superintendent of the academy. So as the Space Force is taking its shape now, I'm curious about how many of my former classmates might be involved with that. Back to the beginning.
Let's take us back to zero.
So oldest of 5 kids. My parents were small business owners. At age 2, I had a 1-year-old brother who was in a crib. I shook him upon smelling smoke. The entire room was black and darkened. And I woke him up, and then I ran to my parents' room and pushed against my mom and said, "Smoke, smoke, smoke, smoke." She woke up and realized the whole place was gutted in fire, black, dense. She ran across the hall, grabbed my little brother and me, grabbed the sheet around her naked, and ran down the stairs. So at age 2, our historic hotel home was burned to the ground. And to this day, the acrid smell of fire continues to alert me to real danger. And how that's relevant right now is 2019 to 2020, Earth suffered massive wildfires, 2.5 million acres in Alaska, fires on both sides of my home in Homer, Alaska, followed by massive wildfires in Australia. This summer in Colorado, the 2 largest fires ever right here in Colorado, just 10 minutes from my home. The alarms with that acrid, smoky smell are going off. And the lessons from my childhood that have made me super sensitive to the signals that we're experiencing in the 21st century, so grateful for. And then of course, building back from that, my parents worked very hard, many different businesses, trenching, liquor store.
Kat, where was this? Where was the hotel?
Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, a beautiful place where many of the Chicago Board of Trade business people would spend summers and weekends. We had a train that would go right from Chicago downtown in the Loop right up to Lake Geneva.
Wow. So one second, you were 2 years old?
Yeah.
You don't remember this. You were told about it.
I remember the smell, and I remember one image standing beside a fire truck and watching the bright red flames.
Wow.
That's all I remember. And a friend of my mom's holding my hand.
Wow.
Kind of gets like emblazoned, you know, physically emblazoned, cellularly in our body.
Wow.
Tragic trauma occurs like that. So yeah, so growing up, being responsible, I was running my parents' liquor store at age 12, carting people who were age 18 because they had a grandfather clause there. So yeah, I was running a liquor store as a teenager, and then became a ski instructor at Playboy, which interestingly.
Hold on. So at 12, you were selling booze. And then at 19, what were you doing?
At 17, I became a ski instructor at the Playboy Club. So
a ski instructor.
Yeah. So at 1958.
At Playboy.
Yeah, in Lake Geneva.
With Hugh Hefner.
Yeah, so let me explain this. I was born in 19.
You have to explain this, Kat. Everything made a lot of sense until now, but you know.
there's a little bit of synchronicity here. I was born in 1958, baby of the year. All of those prizes and awards vanished in the fire. But in 1958, Congress was deciding whether the Air Force Academy should be in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, where the Playboy Club would ultimately be built, or in Colorado Springs, Colorado, which was the ultimate decision. So, yeah, so I went from the Playboy Club in Lake Geneva, learning how to ski because my boyfriend loved skiing more than he loved me. And I soon realized I better learn how to ski. And it's become a beautiful thread throughout my life. In '88, I was up for the Olympics in aerial skiing. Uh, and the girl that I beat in qualifying, I did a quadruple daffy, which is 4 splits in the air, about 75 feet in the air. She did a triple trick, and I actually beat her. But she got the one spot because in Europe, she had competed a couple of times. At that time, no one in America was allowed to do inverted aerials, and that meant that I wasn't able to do it. But she practiced in Europe, and so our coaches knew that that degree of difficulty would make a difference, and ultimately she got the gold medal. So Melanie Pellenick, 1988 in aerials. Anyway,
But we should think of this in a positive vein.
oh yeah, definitely, yeah, good
You
for
went
her.
on. You went on to other things.
Exactly. Where have you heard that before?
I don't know. I'm a good student, Kat, of yours.
Fired up, girl.
There you go. So from Playboy.
Okay, so from Playboy, I was interested in international affairs. Travel always intrigued me, and I had many, I would say, loud conversations with my conservative business parents about how unfair it was that some people had so much and so many had so little. Could really feel that um, that gap in Lake Geneva, where the uber wealthy from the Chicago Board of Trade, all the kids had all the amazing clothes and the trips and the boats and all that. And I wondered why that was. It didn't feel right to me. Um, and so I wanted to study political science, but on an international basis. So had a couple of exchange programs, one with AFS in Argentina in the summer of, I believe, 76, maybe, or 77. It was during the time of the disappeared, where 30,000 people were vanished by their government. What I later learned was the case, as is also the case in America, that many Germans immigrated to Argentina and brought some of that authoritarian structure with them. And in fact, the same is true in America. So the summer of my junior year in Argentina and the summer of my senior year in Barcelona, Spain, with a college called Knox College, great small private school, but expensive. I went to that college the first year, came home at Christmas time and heard my parents arguing about money. And I knew, being the oldest of 5 kids, that I couldn't burden them with that I had to find another way to educate myself. So applied to the Air Force Academy, went through interviews with generals, competed with 150 guys with all of the athletic things, batteries of tests, all kinds of interviews and applications, and fortunately, very fortunately, was selected. Given an appointment.
Kat, excuse me for a second. Either there's an avalanche going on in your backyard, or there's some noise of your microphone rumbling around.
Okay, let's see. How's that?
Much
That
better.
So, yeah. So, from the Air Force Academy, came back home, did some rep work for Seagram's Chateau and Estates wines, and then moved to Colorado and began competing. Met my husband in Beaver Creek wearing a black Bogner one-piece suit with laces on the corset. Very unfair for him. It's like it looked like a scuba diving suit. So as I walked by and saw his black and geometric fluorescent pink sweater, I said, "I love your sweater." He said, "I love you." And 100 days of asking to marry me, I finally gave in at Kafer, surrounded by 20 people in the Bolle family. He started the Bolle company in America. And so I've been an executive wife for many years. We took our company public in 95 and started another one, Haber Vision, which was the first online only sunglass and goggle company. So here we are now, and I've been organizing TEDx for over a decade, and I'm a climate reality leader and mentor. I walked across the USA from March to November of 2014 in the
One
Great,
second, you walked across the
yeah,
USA?
yeah, in the Great March for,
You mean like Tom Hanks in the movie?
yeah, yeah.
You
Along,
walked across the United States.
yeah, along with a few dozen other people. And at times, I have a broken bone in my foot from running down the hall at the Air Force Academy, trying to take a stand for the freshmen who had failed. You have a knowledge exam every week in this little book of facts about everything in the Air Force, values, famous pilots, different kinds of planes, all kinds of facts about the Air Force. And the sophomores were responsible for training the freshmen. The freshmen failed and were grounded by our commanding officer. And I didn't feel that that was just, ran down the hall and broke my foot. So that bone in my foot sometimes didn't allow me to walk. So sometimes I had to actually ride a bike. But yeah,
No, but I mean, even if you rode a bike across the United States,
yeah.
that would be kind of special. I don't know, other than Tom Hanks, I don't know anybody who's done that.
Well, we started out with 2,000 people. We had a 4 a.m. Blessing by 4 Native Americans from that region. Then 2,000 people gathered in a rally that day in March. And we had politicians, we had actors, we had nurses, we had activists all launch us off. And in Wilmington, California, which is right from there, you see all of these massive cranes for the global supply chain, bringing in goods from mostly China to the US via California. And as we started that day at 9 o'clock, we started marching, I think. We were in a multi-year drought in California, and it started to rain torrentially so badly that the street flooding was up to my knees. And as we walked down that street, you could see right from the street oil derricks. And on almost every corner, you would see a handful of mostly Mexican men, Latino men in oily, greasy, one-piece overalls working on old beater cars. And it was such a metaphor. All along the march, we encountered so many ways in which poor, often immigrant Americans were living in places where the fossil fuel industry, the polluting industries, the manufacturing locations had deliberately located because those people had little or no political power to stop it. And those in power provided a pathway for overall financial economic growth at the expense of these poor communities. So many stories to tell along the way around that. And it just solidified for me that we have to be the change. So every day I ask myself what more can I do?
So when you started out in California and you ended up where?
In Washington, D.C., and on November 4th, I was the first of about 150 people to be arrested at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, protesting them rubber stamping fracking infrastructure, deep water ports, fracking drilling, compressor stations. When a pipeline goes up a steep location, it needs a compressor to keep moving it along that pipeline.
So you were arrested?
Yes.
Are you a felon? Am I interviewing a felon?
I don't know if there's much of a record there, but maybe. Who knows? It
It's
hasn't
an,
really stopped
it's
me.
another first on You've Got Mel. So on two questions. On the one hand, you're a capitalist because you have this company making goggles and sunglasses,
Yeah.
and on the other hand, you are a fierce socialist fighting
Yeah.
for the oppressed and the depressed and
Yes.
helping to make the world cleaner and better.
Yeah, I think the whole world is in a process of transition. Many multinationals now are exploring what they can do for their stakeholders rather than their shareholders. So expanding the perspective of the impact that we have of the resources that we've been given or gathered. So it used to be that corporations would just their legal requirement was to optimize profit for their stakeholders, their shareholders rather, shareholders. Shareholder is someone who owns shares in a company. A stakeholder is someone who is impacted by the company. It could be the employees, it could be the community in which that company is operating in, it could be the very land, water, and air that that company is impacting. So, in a circular economy, that's an economy that does not waste anything. Everything that is gathered continues to be reused and repurposed and redesigned. That's where my thinking is now, but it's informed by the previous way in which I could make my way in the world through capitalism. But now I'm starting a B corporation called Trust, which I feel is the most important thing we need to have in order to make this transition. That will be doing climate activations and coaching for people who are really focused on it, not just as, I did this one day and I'll try that. A serious, committed dedication to changing the way we live more lightly and brightly on the planet.
So this is so people like us have known that Zoom and Skype and all of these technologies have existed for 15 or 20 years, but only during the last year we've used them rather than get on an airplane.
Not really true. 7 years ago, the same month, in fact, that I started the march, I also started a virtual Rotary club called We Rotary. And at that time, we used Google Plus Hangouts
Mhm.
and then transitioned to GoToMeeting and ultimately have been using Zoom for many years. And we gather people from all over the world: Russia, Japan, Taiwan, Mexico, France, many states in the US are our members. And our focus is on the other existential threat that humanity has created for ourselves, and that is the nuclear weapons. So for 7 years, every other week, we've been educating ourselves in an online platform and creating global conversation and community so that we'll have understanding. And thankfully, right now, there are thousands protesting in Russia, and we have 3 Russian women as our members. And we do projects in Myanmar, and Aung San Suu Kyi was part of our conference that we did in Hawaii, the World Peace Forum in 2013. And Myanmar is having massive political breakdown. And in the US, January 6th, we had an insurrection. So at this moment when there is so much and predictably so political unrest in the world, just as there was with the Spanish flu 1918 to 1920. By the way, most of the deaths occurred of the Spanish flu in 1918. Most of them occurred in 1920. So just FYI for everyone who's hoping this pandemic is done and over, hold on, it's still going to take a bit, I think. So the good news is that global conversations can be had. And how do we reach the other, those who don't share our community values, those who live in different regions? And how do we build bridges so that we can find our way through and build scaffolding for others to elevate the way in which we are more decent with each other on the planet?
Absolutely. So, yes, I mean, people like you who are early adopters of this technology, but people like me who knew that it existed, but I used video conferencing very sparsely
Mhm,
until last March.
mhm.
But I think that this is going to be an alternative, and we'll have more and more of these conversations and conferences, and that will help. Um, I plan to travel less when this is over.
I have already radically diminished my carbon footprint, which went from a 3 to a 13 when I added in all of the carbon that I produced from flying, offsetting it, of course, but still, it's a production of carbon.
I'm
And
happy to tell you, Kat, that my main imprint right now is breathing out.
yay,
My car doesn't move.
that's great.
Anyway, two things. First of all, a sentence about the doors in the background.
Okay, so these are doors from Mary to Mexico, and they were all taken by, let's see if I can get his signature in there. Can you see that chalk pull? So hold on just a moment. I'm going to show you another picture that will be relevant to that
Okay. You want
period.
to show us also the view from your veranda in Vail, Colorado?
Yeah, let me just bring this to you first because this is really more important.
Okay.
You see that, I
Mm-hmm.
hope.
Yeah.
This is the Magician's Pyramid. This is Uxmal, near Merida in the Yucatan Peninsula. These letters, WILD,
Mm-hmm.
stand for Wild Foundation, whose board I serve on. These are the youth that I referenced earlier, and most of the D is made out of elders. When we got to the WIL, all of these elders were getting bored of waiting in here. Let's see, here.
Mm-hmm.
Decided to start walking off. And the youth literally had to chase after the elders and say, wait, come back. We can't do this without you. It's such a metaphor for what it's going to take to solve the global climate crisis right now. This is colorful because right as we stepped off of the bus, Hurricane Ida hit. And so we all had to get these colorful ponchos to protect ourselves. So this picture was created by John Quigley, who does large human images, and produced by Chalkpole. So that was the 9th World Wilderness Congress, the 11th, which was originally supposed to be in China. After 6 years of planning and 3 renegotiated efforts, never did happen. Then we moved it to India. 2 weeks before it was to happen, it was canceled because of the pandemic. So there's that. So the solution to climate is it's going to take everyone, everywhere, doing everything as quickly as possible. It's going to take the youth and it's going to take the elders. It's going to take technology. It's going to especially take agriculture and fossil fuel, completely reimagining how it operates in the world and produces the products that it wants to in a way that doesn't poison the people in the planet. Methane, which commonly leaks from fracked wells, is 82 times more lethal than
Yeah.
carbon.
Mm-hmm.
So
So we have a lot of work to do.
we do. And how do we do that? I think doom and gloom is not the answer. I think celebration, music, creativity,
So
coupled with science and solutions.
okay, so I agree with you, and let's celebrate with a Beatles song.
Yay.
Are you fond of the Beatles?
Is it Here Comes the Sun?
Is that your favorite Beatles song?
I did a flying rings thing on that song at one time. I
Wow.
made
So
it look like I was going to fall 30 feet in the air and everyone gasped as I think I was like 13 at that time.
amazing. So this is a very apt way to conclude our wonderful interview with Kat Haber. And I don't know whether you know this, but there is a tradition on my show that the interviewees sing. Thank you, dear. That the interviewees sing their favorite Beatles song.
So I'm supposed to choose the song?
Didn't you just choose the song?
Yeah,
Okay.
playing it.
So sing us a little bit of it, please.
Oh, I'm supposed to sing it with a cappella? Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Let me see. Here comes the sun, doo doo doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. Da 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 da. Little darling, it's been a long, long, lonely winter. Little darling, it's been years since it's been here. Little darling, little darling. Little darling, little darling, here comes the sun.
Kat, this has been remarkable. Take care of yourself. Continue to be an earth angel
Thank you.
and to help us fix the planet and be better human beings.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself, dear. Bye bye.
Ciao.
Bye.